Welcome to another Hollywood Times Live. In this episode, we focus on a new documentary, Salt in My Soul, which provides a rare look into the life of Mallory Smith. Our own Valerie Milano interviews filmmaker Will Battersby and Mallory's mother, Diane Shader Smith.
I'm Valerie Milano from the Hollywood Times, and I want to welcome Diane and Will from Salt in My Soul. We have seen the film, and so that's what I'm going to get right into it, since we don't have a heck of a long time. It's a hard film to watch, obviously, but through it, I had my colleagues as well watch it, and they were thinking the way you guys filmed it, we still didn't know until the very end if she was going to stay in our world or not, or go to the netherworld, So that really kept you on your toes to continue, this journey with her and you guys. What made you turn her story into this film?
Well, I read the book. I had never met Mallory, but I read it at the end of 2019 and was completely blown away. Both by her writing, but also the specifics of the story, but also I thought the message that this story would have. And actually, one of the producers, Richard Abate, who had helped sell the book originally, had sent it to me, thinking it could make a great film. So. I read it in one sitting, knew I wanted to make it into a movie. So Richard put me on the phone with Diane, and we started those conversations.
Diane, you guys weren't privy to her diary, from my understanding, till towards the end of the movie. What about your son? I want to talk about your son for a minute. Micah, right?
Yeah,
Does you pronounce it? Their relationship a little bit more. Y'all delved into it to a little bit, but their closeness. And do you know if he had any idea that this diary existed before you?
He did know, but he wasn't like me. He wasn't dying to read it. He just knew his sister was this writer, and he would bring he's actually a really good writer too. And they would often discuss, they're both intellectuals in their own way, although you wouldn't know it to meet Micah because he doesn't present as an intellectual, but he presents more as interested in music and in sports. But he's a really, really deep thinker. And they used to have these late night conversations when they were young. And I think all of this has just crushed his spirit, and he's climbing his way out. It's interesting. A lot of people in my talks, I'll give my whole talk about Mallory. In the end, they just hone right in on Micah and they say, well, how is he doing?
Really?
And I think it's perceptive because this society does a really good job of providing services for parents and for friends, but they don't do enough to pay attention to siblings. And there is a phenomenon called the unaffected sibling syndrome. And what happens is when somebody in a family has a disease that takes up so much energy, the unaffected sibling, no matter how much attention you pay, can't help but feel disjointed and distraught, but their needs are not attended to because they're not dying. And you always go towards the more immediate crisis.
Yeah, interesting. I want to ask you about your husband as well, how difficult it was for him to cope, knowing he had discovered it too late to save, can you just, I know it's probably really still hard to talk about, but if you could talk to me about him a little bit.
Well, filmmakers love to talk about the plot twist. And the memory I have very vividly was standing in UPMC right after Mallory died, and we were all hysterical. And I remember shaking Mark and saying, don't you dare collapse on me. Don't you dare go down a dark hole, because he was in that dark hole. I said, don't you dare. And, he completely surprised me. He, in the first year, he wanted to quit his job, and he wanted to go get a PhD, and he wanted to figure out how to save the world with phage therapy. And I thought, oh my Lord, I literally was worrying about him. But very quickly, what happened was the book came out in 2019. And the two of us went together on book tour because I had a whole bunch of talks set up all over the country. And he was going to go with me. Our son was an adult and he didn't need us. He didn't live with us. But a month in to a year-long tour, Micah had a little bit of I don't want to say breakdown because that's a little dramatic, but he had a moment where he was sort of not doing very well. And he reached out to us, and Mark, I said to him, one of us is going to give the talk and one of us is going to go home, and you pick. And of course it was a no-brainer because I wrote the talk and I was planning to do it. So but I gave him the choice, because if he had said he didn't want to go home and he wanted to do it, he went home and he never looked back. And from that moment on, I never worried about him emotionally. And by far, he's been the stronger one of the two of us. I'm always crying. I'm always distraught. I'm living and breathing and sleeping everything about her story. And he keeps it in. I mean, I kind of thought he didn't care for a while. And then one day in the beginning of the pandemic, when his work had come to a crashing halt, I said, where are you disappearing to every day for hours on end? And he's like, I go to the beach every day and I think of Mallory. And he hadn't really had the time or the space to grieve. And his way of grieving was driving to the beach. So that we've spent a lot of time at the beach in the last few years. It's his healing place. And I think he's very comforted by the fact that I'm carrying the torch with phage therapy, with Mallory's writing, with her story. And I think it's allowed him to grieve privately, but move on. And this allows me to live in this world when I'm working with Will or with Random House or with anything related to the story. But then when I close the door to my office at the end of the day, or before I come into the office in the morning, I'm able to live in the world. And it gives me a place to put the grief. And I think it's given Mark a place to put his grief. So
I'm going to just switch gears a minute, but since you're still on a roll, and then I have a couple of questions for Will, and I know I don't have a lot of time, like I said, but Diane, what lessons, and maybe Will wants to talk about this too, can viewers learn from watching this film? Not so much lessons, that's probably not the right word, but you kind of get my drift.
I'd like to let Will take this one since he made the film. I mean, I'm happy to answer it, but I think he made this film and he deserves to answer it.
Oh, thank you. I think, I think the film is, in a way, a perfect metaphor for COVID, right? And for what we've all been going through, right? Isolation, masks, so many of the protocols for COVID came from the cystic fibrosis world. And I hadn't really realized that until we were quite close to the end, that I think I'd very much been making a film from that experience. I was shut away in my house like everybody was. We were losing people, and I think, the big part of Mallory's story is the mental health aspect. She handles it very specifically, but and really, taking that on board, and accepting that we're all suffering. So in a way, I think, it's a very specific, small story about this amazing girl in California, this amazing writer. I think really can take on a very big significance, the mental health aspects, the invisible illness aspects, the chronic illness aspects, and we've been very surprised actually by seeing how many different groups are sort of finding their own message in it. There's a big environmental screening going on with some very high profile environmentalists, because Mallory was very interested in that. So it's been very nice. And I'd love to say it was all completely intentional. It's not, it's the nice thing about making a piece of art, that it has ripples, and this seems to have a lot of ripples for people, which is nice.
Do either of you have any, advice for parents that are struggling with terminal illness?
Well, I do. I think you have to find the joy in every day. Whether you have a day left, a week left, a month left, 10 years left. When Mallory's prognosis was revealed to me, I remember being hysterical. And I remember my mom saying, Diane, you have friends who will lose their children to drug overdose. You will have friends who lose a child to a car accident, texting while driving. You'll have friends who overdose. I mean, there's a million reasons people will die. Somebody will come up with an unexpected health condition. And I know from being in a grief group with other moms, most of them did not have the roadmap. Most of them didn't know. And so the message I would impart and what I learned was that life is short, carpe diem, and don't look at the quantity, look at the quality, and try to find joy every day.
Gosh, those are just beautiful words. I just can't wait to read the book. Where can we find it?
The book is available in any book outlet. I mean, most people find it on Amazon. Penguin Random House has it. I think it's in all the usual outlets, but there is a website, saltandmysoulbook.com, and there's a website for the film, saltandmysouldoc.com, and they both link back to each other, and they both show you where you can get the film, where you can get the book. And they also, if you want to see photos, if you want to read more about her, see what other people have had to say, it's all there.
Lovely. I was about to ask, how can we find more information? And Will, what are you going to be doing next? Are you working on a project?
Well, this is taking up most of my time at the moment. You know, as I said, it's kind of been amazing. We're planning a big screening in Washington, D.C. at the Kennedy Center for Congress and the FDA, because some amazing groups have Boomer Esiason and the Football Players Foundation is hoping to use the film to really push for, there's a big bipartisan bill around superbug research funding that they're very involved with. So we're doing that. We have environmental screening. We have screenings at UCSD, at Yale, at Harvard, at Stanford. So this is going to take up my time for a couple of months. And then I started shooting a documentary series in around April.
All right. Good for you. Well, I just want to thank you both again. And I'm going to be encouraging our readers to watch the movie and buy the book. And, you know, I've got kids of my own. So, you know, it really hits home. All those great quotes you just said, Diane, just living our life and making it, just appreciating it. So I don't know if you want any final last words, but go for it if so.
Well, what I would say is I do love to hear from people, and my address is on the website. So if anybody watches the film and wants to reach out, I'd love to hear.
I have to say, I thought she was crazy putting it on the website. I sort of said, listen, if this film takes off, you know, but it's a really moving thing about Diane. And I think probably, you know, the process, the grieving process that she's gone to, and and I've seen this, how valuable it is for her to have people reach out, you know, and it's extraordinary. It's all over the world. I mean, it was Poland, Australia last week, you know, and I think that's another really important lesson too, is to not try and contain your grief alone, you know, and share it and reach out and, you know, make those points of contact, find community.
Oh yeah, that's it. Find community.
Well, appreciate you guys again, and continue with your press tour. And
thank you so much.
Really thank you for talking to the Hollywood Times today.
We really appreciate it.
Okay. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching, and suggest you subscribe to this channel for the next Hollywood Times Live.